Aye.
Got it.
Fantastic. Well, today we have brewing royalty in the form of Bernard from Alibi. He's just recently picked up the Champion NZ exhibitor for 2021. We can claim that he learned everything he knows from our club because he was a member for a very brief time. So welcome, Bernard, and thank you for coming along at such short notice.
Thank you for having me back. Yeah. So what do you guys want to know? What do you want to hear?
Well, you can give us your life history and how you got from home brewer to champion exhibitor in 3 easy steps.
3 easy steps.
Okay, words or less.
To be honest, it could have involved a lot more homebrewing. I mean, my background before brewing beer professionally was in wine. I mean, throughout high school, I used to put together homebrew kits because who didn't? And it's a way to wag school and do something productive. I did a science degree. I ended up getting a job at Oyster Bay out west in their bottling facility, where I kind of fell in love with the production of booze. I was working in a lab. It gave me some technical skills. I then left that to travel the harvests, travel the vintages and bring in the grapes to make the wine. And I was doing that for 6 or 7 years, but I came back home. I wanted to live back in Auckland, and that was kind of when craft beer in New Zealand was picking up, and I realized that's what I wanted to do. We're talking 7-8 years ago. Maybe it was 9 years ago, but 8 years ago, I kind of hassled the guy. There was a brewer up in Arch Hill in Grey Lynn, Governor.
Oh, yes.
So at that point, I had managed to move back to Oyster Bay, living in Auckland. I was a lead cellar hand, so pumping wine around, gas balancing, all that kind of jazz. It was just big production stuff. It was really boring. There was no art to it. It was just manufacturing, moving wine from left to right and put it into bottle. Not to say it wasn't full of useful information. It's all kind of paying its dividends now. But I pestered Andrew at Governor for a good 6 months, and I'd come off night shift and go up there and help him bottle and kind of just put in the hard yards. And he eventually got to a point where he could offer me a full-time job, and I worked for him for 18 months until that kind of fell over. It didn't go as well as anybody had hoped. Cracking beer, craft beer was just coming up in Auckland. He was making only lager. At that point, if you were drinking lager, you were drinking anything but craft, and everyone drinking craft was drinking IPAs and pale ales. So it was a tough time, but great learning ground for me. He put in a Chris Little engineering brew system from Nelson. That was a 12 hec. He had 4 fermenters and a single bright tank, and that's kind of where I learnt most of my brewing skills. During that time, I did a bit of home brewing. It wasn't a lot. I remember being at Oyster Bay. Carlos de la Barra, now of Omnipolo fame. He was my boss at the time. He was senior winemaker. I started brewing saisons out the back during night shift, and we would kind of go out into the field and crack a few and sample. And then he came on board and we started brewing together. That's where the kind of homebrew kicked off, and he was a lot more into the homebrew than myself. I kind of just wanted to jump that step. I didn't have much equipment. I had a chili bin with a brass manifold and plastic fermenters. Everything was high oxygen, but I was just persistent, just writing recipes. So after Governor, I probably spent 6 months, maybe 10 months washing dishes, trying to find that next job. I didn't want to, I was just having a break from things. Where the job at Alibi came along, and they had just put in this brand new 12 hec system. Again, another Chris Little. I met Campbell through a friend of a friend. My group of friends are his group of friends, but I'd never met him. So he'd heard of me. He actually came to Governor once to see the Chrysalis system. I wasn't there, but yeah, so I kind of just said, this is what I want to do, and completely faked it and bluffed my way through it. And they gave me the head job. And whilst that was going on, I think they were putting the system in. They took me on. I worked another vintage with them, helping out in the winery, and just worked on recipes. Trying to get a red IPA, all that kind of jazz.
So what scale plant were you doing that on?
That was a Faro system. So yeah, 30, 40 liters. But I could never crack it. Every beer I brewed, I tipped out. I'm my own worst critic. I made so much beer and I didn't want to drink any of it. It was a really stressful time for me. And so was the first 2-3 years of brewing, getting my head around. I mean, I guess I commissioned the whole brew house without even realizing what I was doing. They didn't have another brewer there, or Chris didn't have anyone to run anything through it. So I kind of set it up and got it running, and have just, it took off. It was going extremely well. The beer quality got better. I just knuckled down, studied up. I did a few trials in the Faro, but realized, it's not just the brew system. We didn't have good fermenters. We didn't have small gas fittings to push with gas and corny kegs and all that kind of jazz. It was just all too finicky. So I just kind of decided to screw it all. And my trial batches are 1,000 liters.
Yeah, well, that seems to be a way with a lot of brewers. They have in common. That's, if you spend 4 or 5 hours on a small system, when you can spend 4 to 5 hours towards 1,000 liters, then why wouldn't you?
You can also protect the beer so much easier if you've got the tools to do it at a 12 hex system. I almost feel it's easier than home brewing.
Can you expand on protect the beer?
Well, just in terms of moving beer around and keeping oxygen out and keeping it fresh, dry hopping, cropping, you've got things that are specifically made for the tools that are made for the job. Where the type of home brewer I was I'd try and put a bunch of crap together and get it to work, where function was more important than quality of beer, I suppose. But when you're brewing, you've got proper pumps, you've got gas lines, you've got CO2 and buckets of it. You've got all the tools at your fingertips. So I quickly just started doing trials. Alibi, well, what are we talking? 2016 was the first brew. I was quite happy with the I'd been making lager, which was a big help because everyone knows that lager is quite hard to brew. So I thought, look, if I can do that, it's just kind of working out how to build hoppy things around a nice malt bill and a clean fermentation. I can do this. So I spent 18 months trickling through a few trial beers and kind of locked in the 4 main core beers. But yeah, being on the island, we were just busy with tourists. It was quite, I never really thought about it, but in terms of building a brand, it was near impossible because I was making beer for anyone who walked off a plane or a cruise ship, and we had no means to get it to Auckland. So we spent 3 years selling all our beer on site, which would have been great for the bank. It was kind of just before COVID hit, we started getting a bit extra space and momentum and turning cleaner beers through, and kind of started to get a bit of a name for ourselves out in Auckland. And then COVID hit, so we're pretty much not brewing at all because we're keg only, or have been keg only. All the bars are shut.
So before you get onto the canning line, which I guess you're about to talk about next, do you want to tell us a little bit about this Fool's Goop that some of us have got in the glass?
The most year on Fool's Goop. Fool's Goop, hazy IPA. Just looking at the recipe here. It was brewed for the second hazy IPA challenge. I don't believe they held it last year, but the year before we came third or second or third. I can't remember. McLeod's took it out as per, because they make fantastic beer. This year we didn't place. But yeah, it's a 6.5% hazy, lactose at about 3%. Simple malt bill of Marisota, rolled oats, and malted oats, to about 30%. And a mix of Strata, which is a hop I haven't used before, bit of Cryo Citra, and Idaho 7. I hope it's holding up well, because that was brewed end of June. That was a quick turnaround. I think I had 3 weeks to get it submitted to the competition.
Yeah, I think it's holding up all right.
Yeah, have you guys used Strata before? Can homebrewers get their hands on it?
No, tell us a bit about that hop.
I don't know much about it. It's relatively new on the scene. I had to go and hunt around for it. I found it to be quite juicy. Where are my notes on that? Let's talk about Idaho 7 first. I love Idaho 7. I think it is a great filler, and if you want to make hazy beers, use it in the whirlpool, in the kettle. It's like a big, juicy, inflatable lilo that you can build other hops on top of it. Big fan of that.
So it's got nothing to do with potatoes then?
Not this beer.
No, the Idaho reference, because isn't that the potato capital of America?
Yeah, well, they grow a lot of hops in Idaho too, in the Idaho mountains up there, I believe.
Right.
Just checking too, I mean, Brew Shop have actually got Strata hops available now. You can buy them for homebrewers.
Garage Project, with their latest proper crisp IPA, have used potatoes in their beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good beer, actually.
I've heard. Trophy winning.
You can get it from Garage Project, New North Road. That's where you got it from, isn't it, Kenan?
Yep. This is last week. Probably still there.
Yeah, because we shared that big can, didn't we? It was bloody good.
Yeah, so they've got it on tap there, but they'll have cans everywhere, I assume.
So I just found my notes on Strata. Yeah, it's big and it's sweaty, like almost gym socky BO passion fruit. Yeah, that's what I've got. Like an intense F45 session.
The BO.
And the strawberry off it too. It's like, that's quite pronounced.
Such a delicious combo, eh? Like you got the balance of mouthfeel, for a 6.5, so a little bit of mouthfeel, but it's easy to drink. The aroma when I opened the bottle was just insane.
Great.
Nice complex flavors without having too many that you can't pick up which flavors it is. Beautiful balance.
Thank you.
Loving it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was kind of, I wrote that recipe. I didn't intend it to be a lactose IPA. I just thought last minute, hey, let's throw some lactose in there.
You think that took the edge off anything?
Pardon me?
Did that sort of calm it or take the edge off, you think?
It's hard to say, having not knowing what I was going to do before. What yeast was it? I think it was Vape. The first time I've used, you guys know Vape from Froth Tech?
Yeah.
Froth Tech?
Yeah.
So the first time I used them, and the Vape specifically, I had a lot of, it's Vape, vanilla come off it. Prior to that, I'd been using the Verdant, and prior to that, I'm not too sure, a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, the Vape, it wasn't super estery in terms of tropical notes. It was quite muted, but the flavor out of the fermenter was very vanilla-y. So I was kind of thinking about that as I was brewing. I thought, hey, it's a challenge. Is anyone else going to be doing a lactose IPA? Let's just throw some lactose in there and see what happens. It wasn't much. It was only 3%. I thought if those vanilla characteristics come through again, it would just round it out and milkshake it with some sweaty passion fruit.
I'm interested. Like Maris Otter and hazies don't normally go together. Well, I mean, you don't normally see Maris Otter and hazies. It's normally American ales, or something, a bit of pilsner, some bit of normal ale. What inspired that?
I always do it. This is 100% Maris Otter. But if I can, I always unfortunately have to look at the cost and price of things, and British malt, the price is just creeping up and up and up and up and up. But if I've got to weigh out the cost between hops and malt. But if there's a bit of flex in there, I'll always throw some British malt in there. It just builds in a bit more complexity and fills the palate out as well. Most of my hazies are on the sweeter end anyway. I just think a bit of English malt just kind of helps pad them out.
So what sort of finishing gravity would this be then?
That was 10.23 with the lactose.
I mean, yeah, that is on the higher side of.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely got a sweet finish.
Yeah. It's interesting. I do play around with final gravity, but I do tend to keep them on the sweeter side. But it depends on obviously style. We're talking hazies here, and ABV. As I said, I hadn't really planned for it to be. I think it was meant to finish about 10.20, but with the addition of the 3% lactose, it boosted it up a little bit. The higher the alcohol, I think I'd tend to write recipes to bring that gravity down, because you've got the higher alcohols to kind of fill the palate out. You can.
Are you doing quite a high mash to get that 1020? Because I mean, even 1020 without they're still on the higher side for a 6.5.
Yeah, there's a 68-degree mash.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, beautiful.
I haven't made too many higher alcohol beers, mainly because I want them to be sold quickly and fresh. And in the past, I haven't really had the ability to, sell out all kegs in 4 weeks or whatever. So I haven't really ventured over 7.5, but watch this space. Try and build a bit of that. Use that alcohol that's in there to bring a bit more out of the hops. And
What's your best seller, Bernard? What do you guys sell most of?
Lager, Pilsner.
Okay.
Boho Pilsner, 2-1.
Yeah,
so Alibi, if you don't know, Alibi Brewing Company on Waiheke Island is part of Tantalus Estate Restaurant, which is a winery. So we were open for lunches only, the occasional dinner. So we've got the Heineken crowd. So we move a lot of the Pilsner.
Yeah, we planned a work trip out there last year and got there and went and did some zip lining, and then pulled up at Tantalus and got there and the brewery was closed, and then we looked at the website and we mucked up our day. So it was gutting, because the whole trip was planned around coming to the brewery, but mucked it up.
Man, it's frustrating. I don't really have much to do with the hospitality side of things, but just with the way COVID is, the island staff numbers, everything's really low. So the owners are struggling to get enough staff to run upstairs, let alone downstairs as well.
You probably could have gone upstairs, Steve.
Nah, this was like lunchtime. This was actually 6, 7, 8 months ago. This was probably November, December, actually. So it was
Right.
It was non-COVID, but it was just the day of the week and the time, I think, was the issue.
And upstairs is it's fine if you're having you've booked a table and you're having something to eat, but it's not the best place to go and sink a few pints. There's nowhere to sit. It's kind of like a wine cellar door, doesn't it?
You need to take the P card.
You can take the helicopter over.
Corporate spending, yeah.
Bernard, you last time I spoke to you, the boil kettle was still. Have you got that fixed yet?
Brian, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see that cat still behind you.
Yeah, that's the famous Wooly.
The famous Wooly. Yes. So just before lockdown, I started brewing beers. I had my whole brew schedule lined up, ready to go. I brewed the first beer on the Tuesday, and right as I was kicking out to fermenter and heating the hot liquor to brew the next day, my 120 amp boiler exploded. Well, it didn't explode, it arced, took out the building, the power to half the street.
Well, that was you.
Yeah, that was me. Whoops. but we got, and then lockdown happened a week after that. So it's just pushed everything out. But yes, to answer that story, yes, it's up and running, it's certified. It does need a few gaskets changed, but we're back online. And since then I have brewed 3 beers. One of them had the grain sitting in the hopper for 3 months, and the efficiency on it was actually through the roof.
Oh, good to hear you back at work.
What'd you put that down to?
I've got no idea. How long have you guys left crushed grain sitting around for? And then brewed with it?
Someone was talking about that recently.
It's a safe space. Quite a while.
Well, I think last week they were saying Kelly was saying that they used to have like a month's or more worth of crushed grain. They were getting it straight from down the road after a month.
Where was this?
At Fork, when he was at Fork.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it was at Thornbridge.
Oh,
Thornbridge,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have a mill, so they get the malts to basically mill them a whole month's worth of malt and then delivered in hoppers covered with tarps that they leave outside, and they just use it as they needed it.
Yeah.
And he reckons there was no effect. Like,
It's delicious beer, so must have been okay for them.
That's what I do for all my real ales from now on.
It's not real unless it's been outdoors under a tarp for a month.
It's pre-fermented, pre-mashed. I don't know. I was obviously quite worried about it. It was 300 kilos sitting in there, and I thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and it ended up being 3 months. It's a sealed hopper, so I couldn't assess the malt in any way. It's out the back of the brew.
Could it be a lactose thing? Could it be lactose on the?
You put the lactose in the malt, do you?
No, the lactose is normally on the outside of grain. If it's been sitting there for
Lactobacillus.
You mean lactic, not lactose.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Not yes.
I've got no idea what it was. I was worried that it was going to go moldy because it's exposed to, it could have been exposed to damp sea air, all this kind of jazz, but it turned out great. It's a great beer.
Gonna call it Salty Dog?
Yes.
No.
No, it's just I've got a somewhat of an an APA series going on. So this was brewed with Simcoe New Zealand Cascade, a lot of New Zealand Cascade in the Whirlpool, 5 kilos, so 4 grams per litre. Simcoe throughout the boil, bit of Centennial in the Whirlpool, Simcoe Centennial, Mosaic, dry hop. Yeah.
Getting back to the full scoop,
Yep.
Bernard, you said you used Idaho 7 in the kettle and the Whirlpool, but you had Strata and the Cryo Citra. Where were they in the mix, and what do you use for dry hopping? And
okay, sorry, let me look at the. I added Columbus was the first hop addition with 15 minutes to go, giving me a roughly 30 IBUs. And then Strata and Cryo at 80 degrees in the Whirlpool. 2.5 grams per liter of each. And then, in the dry hop, Strata, Idaho 7, and Citra Cryo. Yeah. I don't, for my hazies, biotransform. I don't mid-ferment hop or tail ferment hop. My biggest issue at the moment is, I guess, yeast is rather expensive, and I want to get as many generations out of it as possible. So not having a consistent brew schedule makes yeast management quite hard. So I crop yeast before I dry hop because I want it to be clean, and a bit more reliable, and not full of hop, really. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you use the froth check.
Yep.
But before that, you used Verdant. I've got a whole bunch of Verdant at the moment. So how'd you find Verdant as a yeast?
Verdant, yeah, good. Pretty
Is it
low
a dry
attenuation.
form?
It's a dry form.
Yeah.
I think it cost about $420 for 2 bricks, where a package from Froth is about $650. So it's a bit of a saving. But no, I quite like the Verdant. Again, it's a low attenuator. Some nice vanilla notes off it. I don't have the notes on me, but from memory, I don't know if I should say that because I can't remember. True. I think the final pH was quite low compared to some of these other hazy yeasts, which you just have to. I feel as if you have to watch somewhat if you're, doing. Yeah, final pH on a hazy is quite important. I think I'm doing a little trial to see if that's true, but there's a sweet spot I'm working towards, and sometimes I think the Verdant went too low, and even after dry hop, it wasn't right where I wanted it. And with the beer finishing off dry with a lower pH, it doesn't feel quite as full.
Is there any other styles you can use Verdant for, or is it mainly the New England IPAs?
You can get creative, but they say that you can use it for stouts, American stouts, English style beers, hazies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've used it primarily for IPAs and hazies, and it's delicious in both.
Yeah.
It's probably my main yeast for those, actually.
Yep.
We had
There's a couple
the
of
people
sort of
in
West Coast.
from. We had the people in from Gladfield, and they were strongly promoted the Verdant, so I bought a brick from them. So I'll be using Verdant for everything.
Why not? Or don't use it for your lager. That's gonna be crazy.
No, it's a lager.
Why not? Play around with it. There's no rules. It's kind of
It's so far it seems very clean. It jumps into action quite quickly, like 12 hours, just with hydrating it. No starter.
What sort of temperature range is on it?
Well, I've done it with IPA style, so around the 18.5, 19 degrees, maybe pitching a little bit warmer, maybe 21 or so, and letting the temperature drop. But so far, I've been very pleased with it.
Have you played around with the temperatures much, Bernard?
Yep. Just looking at what they recommend 18 to 23. That's what they recommend. Have I? Yeah, I have. I don't know if I've got much to report back. It's hard to say if a beer is clean. If I'm making a hazy IPA, I'll ferment it a bit cooler, say at 18, and bump it up at the end.
For diacetyl.
Yeah, and then just ram a whole bunch of hops in it. So it's quite hard to tell how clean it is. But if it's a pale ale, I want a few more esters, so I do ferment it a bit warmer because I know it's going to have less hops. I feel like that adds a bit of complexity. And I did 2 IPAs and 2 pale ales, like with that method, and I was happy with both. Yeah. I mean, I don't even rehydrate it. I just smack it and run on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
So by
supposed
higher,
to do that, but I just got into a habit of hydrating. So
but by higher, you meaning more like the 21 degree temperature rather than the 18?
20, 21. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If I got to 21, I wouldn't be too fast. 22, bit high. Although I don't know, haven't tried it. Might be sweet as up until you don't 23. Yeah.
And in terms of your dry hop on that group, I mean that's still got a massive aroma.
It was a big dry hop. Total. Let me just calculate this. Not a 16 gram per litre dry hop.
Yeah, so pretty healthy then.
So you're talking 20 grams per litre total.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
So on top of what you put in the kettle, to about
Oh,
20
yeah.
grams per litre total.
Yes.
Pretty healthy.
That's not unusual. I go higher sometimes.
You're not paying for the hops. That's why.
That's why. You know it. No one's ever said anything, so I'll just keep on going.
Have you toyed with the idea of actually growing some there on Tantalus?
Yeah, initially, because there was a brewery on site before it was Tantalus. It was called, the winery was called Saratoga. And there was a lean-to brewery. I think Ben Middlemas did some brewing there. Maybe Albrecht.
A 300 litre kit.
I'm not sure what size.
There's another British guy on Waiheke who did a bit of brewing.
He
First
was
BJCP judge.
Alan Knight.
Alan Knight.
Yeah. Was that the place?
No, that's next door. That's Wild on Waiheke.
Oh, it's well, okay.
He's still there. They've got a 30-year-old Chris Little system as well, which is kind of just holding it together.
The Auckland Guild had a visit to your brewery back in the Ben Middlemas days.
Yep.
No, it was good.
I think it's
Yeah, it was
changed a lot since then. Yeah, I don't know much about it. It's all kind of rumors. I think back in those days, whatever happened on Waiheke stayed on Waiheke, and no one really talked about it.
Pretty feral, yeah.
It's come a long way.
Don't ask what was on the beer.
Another interesting thing that came up last week was, how do you decide what you're putting in the cold side and the hot side?
What variety of hops?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, is there something you're looking for in a hop that says, yep, there's a cold side hop, there's a hot side?
That's a really good question. I have to ask my subconscious.
Would you like us to put you into a trance? We can all hum, put you in a trance.
Oh God, that's a big one. I like to. How do I do it? I don't know.
Well, is there any method, or you just like throw it in and see if it works, and if it works, and yay?
I think it probably started off with you get with an idea of. It probably starts with dry hop, or started with dry hop. When you, as I just said, I kind of have faked all this until I've just got it all there. So I've kind of haven't homebrewed enough with good outcomes to have all these hop flavor profiles logged in my brain. So I've only been doing it the last 3 years, really. It takes a while to get your head around it. So in that time, I mean, making hazies is a great way to use hops. You use a lot of them. As Brian said, I'm not paying for them. I can use the expensive stuff, and I can use a lot of it and just play around. So you start to learn profiles like the Idaho 7. I'm like, well, I know what that's going to do, and that's going to work really well with both sides. I know what the Citra is going to do. I know what the Mosaic's going to do. I think I probably work around what is a style of beer. Maybe something I haven't, like I've written a recipe recently for a hazy 5.5% pale ale that I haven't used Amarillo in a long time. I did initially, and then all these other cool hops came along. And I think everyone's idea of what Amarillo was is kind of probably drifted. It's probably quite boring now. So my next 5%, I want to play around with what that can do. So I'm going to use a lot of Amarillo, let's say 15 grams per liter, but to make it, just in case it's going to fall flat on its face and be a bit boring, I'm going to throw 5 kilos of Talus in there. Talus is new, it's exciting, it's got that. I've never used it, but it's that Neo Mexicanus. It will be a little bit weird cactusy, and if it's anything like Sabro, it packs a huge punch. So that can probably punch a hole through the Amarillo, or hopefully, if you get the levels right, they'll complement each other. But I wouldn't use a Talus in the Whirlpool, so there'll probably be Amarillo and a bit of. I like to use Columbus. I do like to add IBUs to my hazies. So that's kind of a train of thought. Or if there's some classic combos, that Citra and Mosaic are always going to work well together. So you can throw that in your dry hop or in your kettle and try out something new by bumping it up. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, Amarillo for me has worked right through. So I've used a hot side, cold side. Like that is just one that you get different flavors both, but it's amazing hop that works right through. I've had no issue there at all.
Yeah. I think Simcoe's my favorite hop. I don't know if it's changed in the last 5 years, but the current 2020 Simcoe is just, it's fantastic. It's as punchy as Mosaic, but probably works. I'm finding it works better in the kettle than Mosaic does. I love it. Yeah.
What were your comments before about red IPAs? Have you got any secrets that you could share on
red
a
IPA?
red IPA?
Red IPA is holy grail.
Here's
Like,
one.
The elusive red IPA.
holy shit! I mean, if you can nail that red color, I mean, I've done I've done a pretty decent red IPA, but I could not nail the color.
No, no.
Hard.
It's hard. It's hard. Oh God, the hours I spent, the sleepless nights I spent on a red IPA, all to make a tasting paddle look red and interesting. I've done it. Let's have a look. I haven't brewed it in a long time because I was such a pig. Have I got any tips? Brew something else.
Well, they're so tasty.
Well, they're hard. What I've kind of come to the conclusion, like I ended up adding some rye because it's a bit of a mind game. Beer is a mind game. Rye doesn't have a lot of color to it, but whenever you present some of the rye beer, they expect it to be red. So I kind of started brewing a lot of rye, adding 20-30% of rye into my rye IPA. Because
it probably helps with the perceived bitterness that you kind of expect from a red IPA as well, from getting that from the rye.
What I also found is there's something, I mean, it's a tough combination to get. People want more malt, but they don't want it to affect the hops. And there becomes a point where you can try and do that. I was using 50% roughly American ale malt, 25% rye malt, 17% Vienna, 2% Cara Aroma, and 1.5% Carafa 3 scattered on top of the mash.
You're using that for tinting, aren't you?
Yeah, because I guess what I was, in my mind, I wanted something like a West Coast. I want no malt flavor. I want it lean as anything, with that spiciness from the rye, and then the hops. But what I found, I kind of used that as the base and then just played around with hops. And you can add, I was adding Mosaic, Nelson Sauvin, Idaho 7, or straight classic, Centennial, Zythos, all that kind of jazz. And there's something that happens in the malt that I found that you lose a lot of hop characteristic. It's as if the malt just kind of absorbs anything too new worldy and beats it up with a muddy mash rake or something. Like, it never comes out clean and crisp. So I guess my tip would be, if you're going to make a rye IPA, just keep the hops clean and spicy and don't go too crazy in the dry hop, because I think it can muddle it. And keep it to the classic styles, old school hops.
Amarillo's cracking in a red IPA. Yep. And it's got kind of like a little bit of a jammy profile or whatever. But red IPA red IPA, I think, is probably one of the hardest styles to hit well.
Agree.
Because you've got two big flavors going on. You look at every other style, you've got something that's kind of dominant and submissive. Here, the red IPA, if you get the color, throw the color out the window for a sec. You've got malt at reasonably high levels, and you've got hops at reasonably high levels. And you're riding a knife edge from balls out, man. It's kind of like, when you get it right, it sings. But, you're trying to balance two tornadoes, two big, loud kind of things going on, not just one.
The other thing is, not many people do it because it is so hard. It's really hard to compare what you're doing to what other people are doing, because not many people are doing it. So it's hard to kind of find the one that's a cracking example and be like, all right, well, this is what I'm aiming for.
I think people throw too many malts in them. I was in a really good chat with Larry Seidel. He's down, runs Crux. He used to run the brewmaster at the Shoots for about 10 years, because his one was stunning. And he short boil. He said the longer you boil them, the more colour you're going to destroy. And they go, thanks. He runs short boils, 45 minutes max on his red IPAs. And he builds a colour hue. Like he does a lot of malt teas beforehand. So you build up, like literally dose grains, make a tea plunger, see what they get. And when he gets the hue that he wants, then he tones it, tints it with a really dark malt. Like I'm going to use Peyton black malt to then shift. So you get the red you want. And then to give it richness, don't throw more of it in. Use a really bitching black. And it suddenly pulls it up. It's like colour mixing, and that was his technique. And it blew me away.
Who's this, David?
The guy, Larry Seidel, he was down at Beervana about 5 years ago.
He's a home brewer.
No.
He's
a legend. He was brewmaster at Deschutes for about 15 years, and then he set up Crux Fermentation Project as his retirement project. And
Did anyone ever have a red dwarf from 8 Wide?
No.
It was a long time ago. I think it was probably a batch of Tall Poppy went wrong, but that's the best red IPA I've ever had. And every time I see Soren, I try and talk them into rebrewing it. But
what's so good about it?
It was probably a packaged up accident.
Possibly.
No, but what made it special for you?
Well, it was a little bit of a scaled back Tall Poppy, so it had a real rich malt character, not as hops, but the flavors sort of came through. And just sort of hit the spot. Looked great. Tasted good.
The funny thing is that the first red IPA I did, I think I took it over with mates, and I hadn't really tried it properly beforehand. And as you said, it was so muddy. It was probably one of the few that I actually tipped down the sink. I don't tip many beers down the sink. I tipped this bottle down the sink. And then about 2 weeks later, I just okay, I'll leave it. 2 weeks later, I was like, holy fuck, you got to try it now. Like it just that extra time. Just turn it from something that was muddy into something that was like, holy shit, this is one of my favorites.
I found that in keg as well. Something happens, the hop, if you're using New World hops, that kind of ruddiness does drop away, and the spiciness and from whatever else you've used shines through, and it does clean up. I have noticed that as well. But yeah, extremely hard to brew.
Yeah.
To bring you back to the next plans for Alibi, where you're at with your new bit of equipment there.
Yeah, so the boiler is back online, and 11 months ago we pressed play on a canning line.
Woo!
So it's arrived. Shit took a long time. The label
that's you're past human baby. You're nearly up to elephant baby gestation there,
right? Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but it's here. It's here. The beers have been brewed. I'm moving the final. What am I doing tomorrow? I'm filtering the Pilsner. The silver award-winning Pilsner, and canning the week after. I was meant to can next week. And how it goes. Design as a label.
You don't need any last-minute taste testing.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find someone. Oh yeah, canning line is arrived. Everything's been signed off. Week after next, we're putting beer into cans. I'm doing our Bohemian Pilsner, which I want to be a staple core range. I've got. We used to have a core range of 4 beers: our Pilsner, a pale ale. Thing, New Zealand, English style pale ale. No, New Zealand. A West Coast IPA and a red IPA. I've kind of done away with that because this is before COVID, but it's hard to sell. Bars want new stuff. So I just kind of started getting new stuff and doing seasonals. So we're doing the Pilsner, which will be the first step in a core range. I've released Scud City. It's a beer that I brewed. I think it was my first hazy, and it's made a comeback, and it's going to be kind of like a core hazy beer, which I hope to brew maybe 2 or 3 times a year. In between that, it will be Scud City featuring something. So it's a simple malt bill of Gladfield Light Lager, Gladfield Ale Malt. There's that ale component coming in again. Wheat malt and oats, hopped with Apollo and Columbus in the kettle, and then dry hopped with Citra and Apollo. So that's Scud City, the original. And then from that, there'll be variations. So I might sub out a bit of the Citra for a different hop, maybe Strata, and it'll be Scud City Strata, or Scud City Mosaic, or Scud City Coconut, or Scud City Strawberry Milkshake, or anything like that. So it's going to be it's going to be an evolving core range. And then a seasonal, which is a 5.7% coconut, cacao husk, vanilla milk stout.
Nice. So what format cans? You going 330 or 480s or?
We're doing 440s. 440s. We've got the ability to do 330s, but we're going to start on the 440 and yeah.
And have you considered doing a mixed 6? Because that's my favorite format, because you get to try all the different beer, different styles across from the same.
You have to have 6 beers at the same time.
Yeah, well, that could be the motivation.
My first issue, having 6 beers. No, I don't want to do that, because then you have to start dealing with supermarkets. I don't want to deal with supermarkets.
So where will they be sold?
From the boot of my car, I'm going to drive around. No.
Don't worry, we'll follow.
Yeah.
So where you parking?
You'd be like the Pied Piper.
Dodgy carpo deals. They're the best.
I'll have a trench coat and just flash your cans. Scud City. Where am I going to sell it? Online, through our website. Faro will be a big sales person of ours. So each batch, they're going to be small runs. As I said, we're 12 hec. We've only got 4 fermenters. There's no room to put any more fermenters in. We're kind of crammed in. Putting any more fermenters in would be the demise of Tantalus and Tantalus seats. So yeah, there's no room to grow. So we're less than at capacity. We're less than 50,000 litres a year. Each batch is 1,000 litres finished product, and from each batch, if I choose to can, there'll be 1,000 cans per batch, which isn't a lot. 300 litres for us, and then maybe 3 or 4 kegs to sell. So it's going to be small runs. I'm not aiming for that 6-pack market. I don't want to deal with supermarkets. It will be online beer sellers, Beer Jerk, Faro, the odd Liquorland. Well, yeah, definitely Liquorlands.
Newmarket and Forest Hill.
Totally. Yeah, so good.
Are there any others?
Fresh Beer Company in Neate.
Oh yeah, Fresh Beer. Eden, he's a legend. Yeah, he's a big supporter.
Short batches and then run the FOMO wagon.
Yeah, totally. And I'm not joking. It's me driving the van over to Auckland, picking stuff up. I'm not just brewing. I'm doing everything. I'm doing the social media. I'm picking up the kegs. I'm delivering the kegs. I'm on the ferry with the kegs. It's yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I want to look after this beer as best as I can. I don't want to start dealing with supermarkets and all that kind of jazz.
So you're getting involved with TikToks while that downtime on the ferries, putting some dances with the bears. I was just saying to Darren before that I have seen.
I'm waiting. I love it.
Don't do TikTok. Terrible. I've seen your beers on shelves before. I've picked them up in Liquorland, Newmarket.
Yep.
I can't remember if it was can or bottle. And absolutely stunning. What was the story behind that? Like, it sounds like you've only recently got into sort of being able to can on site. How are you doing that beforehand?
That was all with Crafty Canners. So he would bring his motorbike trailer with his canning equipment in it over on the ferry and unload it all and smash it out into cans. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it was all contract.
To be honest, I'm looking forward to seeing more of your beers on shelf because the ones I've had have been absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a chat on the side of you've seen. There's some questions there for you, Bernard. So there's some people talking about your beers at 16 ton and things.
Oh, 16 ton, they're legends. In a weird roundabout way. The guy who owns 16 ton, Richard McCabe, his dad used to own, well, the owners bought Tantalus off his dad. So Rich McCabe has a bunch of bars, and I'm not sure how it worked with the old winery and brewery, but our current owners bought it off him, and he's just supported us from day one. So yeah, I'll do anything to get my beer down to Richard. Yeah, I have hit up Tim at Mountain and Liquorland a few times. He's not hesitant to buy. He's just hard work, and I don't really have a lot of time for.
You couldn't get much closer to the ferry.
Beer off. Pardon me?
You couldn't get much closer to where the ferry drops you off.
No, the thing is, I don't think they let me over on with a keg.
Yeah, no, the Mountain guy, great dude, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. He can be hard work.
Yeah,
I think he's worried about being able to move the beers.
Absolutely,
very, very small space.
Yeah, I don't mean he's hard work as in a pain in the ass. It's just that it's actually kind of, it takes a few visits, and I don't really have the time and skills to do it. He's a good dude, Tim, but he does have his concerns, and fair enough. He has had some struggles with some other breweries.
You've now got a champion brewery pass. You can put out your pocket and show them.
I am still waiting for them to. I am still waiting for the Brewers Guild to give me a call and be like, "Hey, sorry, we deep creeked you. You have to give it back now."
You didn't miss a decimal point, did you?
Yeah, it feels that way, but it's been 2 weeks and no one's called. So yeah,
well, I remember smaller accolades from the past, like from the City of Ales. You've picked up the best beer at the City of Ales. I mean, it's a smaller sort of thing, but
pretty much every year.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice, but I do People's Choice Awards, it's they count.
Peter's also got a really good PhD in self-deprecation, so just ignore him.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about cans. I will be doing hazy
down on the People's Choice Awards.
Yeah,
that's all Luke gets these days.
Beer judges are only people too,
I'll beer judges are wankers, but people are much better.
What I'm most excited about is which it's great that I managed to brew a beer that won a Pilsner that won a silver award. I think it was also half a mark off being a gold.
Wow. So does that come back to the legwork that you did early on?
I guess so, because I then brewed a dark lager that won trophy. And prior to that, I did want to start ramping up and doing a bunch of lagers.
But you said you've only got 4 tanks. So doing lagers, is that more of an issue for volumes and how long you keep it in the tank and that sort of thing?
Yep, it is. Well, I've got 4 fermenters. I've actually got 10 bright beer tanks as serving tanks, so I can, if need be, move things if the bar's shut. Kind of do primary in my in the fermenter and then move it out to condition in a bright beer tank.
But these serving tanks, normally they're just, you pump them out and you actually serve directly from them.
Correct. Out of my fermenter into the bright beer serving tank, yeah.
I mean, just you said that you wanted to nail your Pilsner before you moved on to the others. Like, is there anything you sort of discovered along that way that just makes that Kraken Pilsner that you think might be a little bit different or improve in process? Because Pilsners are really process. There's a lot of process, and I mean they're simple, but if you get it right.
I mean, simplicity is the hardest thing, right? Like consistency and simplicity. It's about the brew process, but also the fermentation. Just kind of giving it time. What does it make it? I don't know really. I'll know more once I brew more lagers and pilsners.
Pilsner's good though, man. I mean, the Bohemian Pilsner is a cracking beer. I mean, sometimes it straddles styles, which can help hinder it a bit in comps, but apart from that, it's bloody good.
Thank you. Yeah, I have refined it over the years. But,
what yeast are you using for that?
A step mash. Again, I've jumped around. Sometimes I use this current batch was Froth Vagabond, which is their Bohemian lager yeast, which was in both the dark lager and the Pilsner. I've used 3470. I've used WLP 800. I've done a bunch.
So you seem to you mix between liquid yeast and dried yeast. You don't have a overall sort of favourite. I mean favourite. I mean you've used them both effectively.
Yeah, I use them both. The thing with not having a core range is you burn a seasonal every time. You've got room and flexibility to kind of blur the lines so it doesn't attenuate, the yeast doesn't attenuate so well, or it has a different ester. You know, you can learn from it.
Give it a different name.
And give a different name and hide it in the beer. Yeah, I do rely on product information and kind of cross my fingers and hope that it ferments to where it should be. Sometimes, I mean, I'm finding the Vagabond yeast from Froth. It's got great esters. It ferments well cold.
What's your definition of cold?
I run to fermenter about 9.
Okay, that's cold.
9 overnight, and then let it free rise to 10 for 3, 4, 5 days until it kind of starts dropping gravity halfway-ish, and then slowly crank it up to 14, or let it crank up to 14.
That's pretty standard for a lager profile, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I think initially I was just fermenting the whole thing at 10 degrees, not letting it rise at all.
And you found a difference by doing that?
It was so long ago I couldn't really say. Yeah. And I mean, I don't have a specific malt supplier. I like to, if I'm making a Pilsner, I'll use European malt. I won't use New Zealand stuff. You know, I will track down Viamin to make a good lager. It's just, you know, if it's a style you're shooting for, use what's there.
What you using your dark lager?
The Viamin.
It's fishing here.
That was Bohemian, floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt. Sorry.
Floor malted by Pils. If the accountant's not looking over your shoulder, man, that is such an awesome malt.
Yeah, floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt. Floor malted dark Bohemian Pilsner malt. Cara Bohemian, a bit of chit, and some Special 3.
Cool. Thought the beer was amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna. So I take it that since that did all right, you're gonna brew that again?
Nah. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, wedgie next time I see you after that statement.
Yeah, I do want to. We'll wait for winter. Hopefully, I don't know where I'm going. I have to be honest. I haven't thought much past these next batch of beers. I don't know how sales going to go. I don't have a brew plan, but I do want to start doing lagers. And it doesn't mean I'll be doing traditional styles or dunkles. I'd love to start playing around with just make a contemporary, kind of like what a New Zealand Pilsner is, right? Like it's just a good old Pilsner with New Zealand hops. Let's start playing around with German hops in that style, but make them a bit more in that new world style.
We had Kerry from Hop Research on recently, and he was talking about the 101 and the 102 trial hops. Have you got your hands on any of those?
Who are they from?
They're the trial Hop Research ones.
No.
So they'll be coming up shortly.
It's your hop plant and food.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Well, that could be your go-to there then.
Yeah. I might even throw some coffee in some. Why not? I do follow a lot of lager brewers. I get a lot of inspiration from what's happening in America, and I spend a lot of time on Instagram fanboying over stuff and getting deep into dark, gritty corners of beer.
Sure, and that was Instagram, not TikTok.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
No.
There's less dancing on Instagram.
No, there's not. They do the Instagram and then they post it on TikTok and then TikTok post it on Instagram. They bleed through. It's speaking as a young man.
You're not getting confused with Grindr, are you sure?
I'll tell you right now.
I think we need an OnlyFans for beer.
My wife does not know about that, so don't you tell her.
Delete. Luckily on the way. There's a question here, thoughts on Brute. I'm really happy other people are doing it. Some people use it extremely well. Urbanaut are amazing Brute users. They pretty much throw the enzyme in everything and it turns out fantastic. It's a great way to save some cash on malt.
The new batch one's quite good as well.
Which one's that?
It's the bearded one or something. It's just out there last week.
Right. They make fantastic beer. I don't. It's not a style. Brute IPA is not really for me. It doesn't do much for me.
What about the XPA?
Yep.
And what does the X mean to you?
Racy.
Extra.
Yeah, I extra pale ale. An XPA, I would expect an XPA to be like a less malty pale ale, really. Light lager, light body, full hop, without being lagered or have that kind of lager ferment note to it.
Sounds like you might be doing an LXPA then.
Maybe. I've brewed one in the past. It was all right.
Good summer beer.
Great summer beer. Yep.
You mentioned coffee in a Pilsner there, Bernard. I'm wanting to experiment with coffee. As you know, I'm a big coffee drinker. My coffee machine did a very similar thing to your kettle, and it took out the household power supply. $1,200 to get it rebuilt. Thanks very much.
Cheap house.
Yeah. But I want to use some coffee in a few beers, particularly in a stout. And we've had a few people talk about using coffee, and I think it was Kelly last week talking about using beans only. But I've wondered about using espresso coffee straight from the machine. Any thoughts on using coffee?
There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. I think it comes down to where you add it and why. I mean, you if you're making espresso, you probably would want to put it to the boil. Otherwise, you're adding a whole bunch of DO into your fermenter. Yeah, I mean, I think the latest consensus is dry hop with beans. It's great, but that's not to say you can't get good results from grind espresso or anything else, or beans for that matter, in your kettle. I don't know. It's not something I've done. I don't think.
The general thing seemed to be using beans in the fermenter late in the ferment.
Yep.
I guess it's getting them to drop out and get rid of them before you start getting all those more sort of.
Yeah, there's a note that I can't stand in coffee beers. I don't know how to avoid it.
The capsicum flavor.
The capsicum flavor. It can go to hell. It comes off like someone's taken a whatever beer you've brewed and added fake raspberry Coke to it or something.
It's one of those flavors that people have different different thresholds with, and some people are really sensitive to it, and other people aren't.
Yeah.
It sounds like you almost need to do a collab with someone that maybe is like a micro roaster. So they've got a range of different beans. They're not kind of just working with one.
Yep.
I'll put a link to a guy that is actually based in LSE. So he does different roasts for every day of the week. And so he's got actually different profiles, different beans, different sources and origins, and he just cranks through it. So
there are many
maybe
variables.
but see, this is the thing, right? So if you're going to play with it and you want to try and knock out something that is causing
capsicum.
Yeah, capsicum. Thank you. It might be the bean, the origin, the blend. It could be a whole raft of different things.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's.
And a lot of roasters, they'll use like a single origin, or they'll use a single source for their beans, and then treat them very different through the roasting process. So, yeah.
Capsicum, though, is not just from the beans. That's the big issue. Is it's also from your malt base, and it's an interaction between 3 or 4 different components.
Well, we'll see when we put it in a Pilsner. If I get capsicum, I'll be pissed
I
off.
do. Because I mean, like at the end of the day, you've got the. I was talking to Kelly about a post thing on the other day, and because we've talked about it at length, because I think his copy profile is wicked, and that's what we're talking about. Was very similar to what he's doing at Boneface to what he's doing at Fork.
Yeah.
But I mean, he tastes it every 4 hours to 5 hours.
Yeah.
Through, and his view is that unless you can actually pull the beer off the coffee or the coffee out of the beer at exactly the right time, dose post fermentation.
Totally. I mean,
otherwise, it's too hard to get.
It's full of oils, right? And it's going to extract different alcohols, different temperatures, different ABV of the beer product. So I think Sean was quite right there, Brian. You'd want to do you'd find a coffee that I wouldn't just use any coffee. I'd use go out and read some tasting notes and find something that you think would suit the beer you're making, rather than work from there. Start at the beginning. What did Kelly
also
say?
really have a look at the malts that you use with coffee, because that's where actually, I mean, like coffee's got a little bit of the green capsicum in it, so it's like you get stouts and you get that green capsicum on the nose, and it really is like where you get one flavor, everything's done on flavor thresholds. And it's when you get that combination that sort of tips over threshold points, and there are different perception thresholds for that. And it's alignment about 3 different things. So yeast will do it the same as well. The certain yeast will pull it more than others. Like if you've got anything that's a sulfur-producing yeast, and all yeast will produce sulfur, but if you've got a slightly higher sulfur ale yeast, that really then that reduces what you can actually put in terms of coffee and also dark. So it's it's like anything, man. It's a balancing act.
And what did Kelly have to say about the malt that is making specific capsicum notes? What kind of malt is doing it?
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah. At the same time, that guy is just very, very free with his information. So you could literally ask him and he'd tell you.
But I just can't. I'll talk about stuff that he talked about in the public context, but not outside that.
Yeah, fair enough. That's cool. I haven't brewed many stouts. I did Diver's Lung with Moondog, and 1 year ago, but I think this is maybe the 3rd stout I've brewed. I am.
There's some comments on that in the chat.
I'm a bit wary of stouts because I stress about mash pH. So I kind of brew beer and add color back into it. I'm worried that things will be over roasted. And too much in the dry stout category and clash with whatever else is going on. So I am quite light with dark malts.
pH is a biggie with the coffee extraction too, and the capsicum thing that plays a big, and so does minerality. You get your that's why he used a lot of bicarb. He reckons how he talked about bicarb last time with his what was that one? I can't remember the name of it. The Beast. But minerality also plays a big component in terms of that whole, because it's all sulfur-based chemistry. So if you want to read anything in terms of that green capsicum thing, in terms of coffee or whatever, just start reading anything to do with sulfur chemistry and the components and everything, because it's all tied to that.
So you had a call out with the canning machine. You were talking about dissolved oxygen measuring equipment. You're in the hunt. So what's the purpose of that, and how will you use that for monitoring your process?
Well, I don't think I'll be using it because they're about $25,000.
I wondered.
Well, as we all know, oxygen's the number one enemy when it comes to packaging. So I don't have any means to measure it at the moment. So I'm just going off, how beer degrades over time, how it tastes, how it fermented versus bright beer tank. It's all sensory. With that machine, the DO reader, you can run samples through it off the tank, and it'll tell you how much DO is in there. And if it's full of DO, like, well, how the hell did it get in there? Essentially, there's going to be there shouldn't be much DO in there post fermentation, if any. Which means if you open it, dry hop it, all that kind of jazz, there's not a lot of oxygen in there. So where am I picking it up from? Is it the transfer? Is it the filter? Is it unflushed lines? Is it in the canning line? So it would be a way to home process and kind of knock DO out of the beer, meaning fresher beer.
We talked to the guy from Rhyme and Reason does a DO machine, I think.
He does, yeah.
Is that 25 grand?
No, I haven't talked to him about it. He is looking for a new sensor anyway. I do have a DO machine, but it doesn't read the right volume.
PPM base.
Yeah, I don't know who bought that or why or how much it cost. Hopefully, I'm doing some investigation work, and it might be a quick change of a $10,000 sensor or something, and maybe next year I'll try and justify it to the boss.
Just sell more Pilsner, and that will get it across the line.
Woof! Take a pay cut. Yeah.
In that case, screw DO. It's overrated.
Yeah. Just sell more beer quickly.
Totally.
Yeah, just avoid the hazies.
Just avoid the hazies, the bread and butter.
Dirty old hazies.
What's the view on hazies here?
Brown is the new hazy.
Brown's a new hazy.
Brown.
These boys have been producing some bloody cracking brown ales lately, mate. Seriously.
British brown ale. That's where it's at.
Perfect. All right. Love it.
We might be.
The last WBC was going to be on brown ales, but it kind of got roned.
Yeah. So everyone's been practicing for like 3 months.
Keep practicing, guys.
Put up. Keep pumping through.
What's your water like over on the mainland?
It's on
Does it vary a bit? Because I guess it's all tank water.
No, it might vary a bit. I don't measure it that often. Twice a year. Yeah, twice a year at the moment. Well, not at the moment. Prior to this, no, we've got luckily access to a aquafilter, so it's extremely soft. So it's there's not a lot there.
Oh yeah, for the vineyard.
I think there's only like 3 places on Waiheke where they have access to this massive aquafilter that pretty much runs the Coromandel that we've tapped into. We've got a water treatment plant for stuff that goes into I mean, it does go through the treatment plant into the brewery, but it doesn't need to be softened or anything. It's quite low. It's quite soft. Great for brewing Pilsner. I do add some minerals to my Pilsner just to, I can tell you if you want, otherwise I won't. But it's good. It's blank canvas. Well, not completely, but better than brewing with Auckland water. Yeah, it's good. Happy with it.
Are you filtering it all beforehand?
Yeah, it's filtered. Yeah. It's UV filtered, sterile, sand, carbon.
You throw the works at it.
Pardon me?
I said you throw the works at it.
Oh yeah. Well, it has to be all UV for the restaurant, so I'll just take it off that. And it's Tantalus, man. They don't do things half-hearted.
They get odor possum.
Yeah.
So I do have a question, and I think Reese, you hinted, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but it'd be interesting to know sort of what you've been up to during the last sort of 1.5, almost 2 years. Well, 1.5 years really, where everything's kind of ground to a bit of a screeching halt. We've had a few reprieves, obviously, in Auckland, but not as many as other places. How have you guys kept going when you can get to the island? That is,
we haven't kept going. The first lockdown,
there's no cruise ships.
There's no cruise ships. We weren't able to open. So first lockdown, my partner, she works in the hospital, so I became stay-at-home dad. So I didn't really go to work at all the first lockdown. Went back to work. Things kind of picked up a bit, and we're doing a lot of keg sales. Got some stuff in place in terms of vans and shipping and streamlining distribution. We did have a distributor up until November last year, but then we got rid of them and started doing it ourselves, and it was great. We got some things set up in place to kind of get kegs out fresher, better than what they were doing in and around Auckland. But with this lockdown, I haven't been going over. It's been 7 weeks. Up until 4 weeks ago, I wasn't going over at all. There's no customers. We can't open.
Have you guys considered brewing in Auckland and then shipping the kegs over, as opposed to trying to brew in Waiheke and bring it?
Contract brewing is really expensive.
Yeah,
it's really expensive. I mean, they've still got to pay me. And then who are we going to sell the beer to?
Yeah.
And then shipping it and all that. Kind of
Pre-COVID, they were selling beer out of bright tanks, and you got no middleman, and it's just.
That's the reason why Alibi kind of took so long to catch on. It was all going to these tourists over the bar, out of a bright tank, full margin. We don't have to sell cans. We turn it over good cash, to the extent of building a brand. But then COVID came along and put a halt to it all. So I don't know what's next. Obviously cans, but how quickly that picks up, no idea. So I just kind of watch this space and.
You got a pretty powerful brand now. I mean, like a lot of people look at the Brewers Guild and they're looking at some of these names. So hopefully it's going to help.
Yep, hopefully.
So I mean, it's always good. I mean, to have beers in places like Hopscotch and Beer Spot, because it reaches that wide audience. And as I said before, the beers we've had, it's really good sort of rocking up to see Hugh and seeing your beers on tap there as well. It's been great because I can give him a bottle and say, "Can you fill this?" And he says, "Sure, no worries."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been nice to sort of see your beers popping up in unexpected places.
Thank you. I mean, it's all these unexpected small guys that have the biggest support, really. I mean, the Beer Spot's another great one. Prior to this lockdown, I was dealing with Joey, and I'd say, "Mate, I've got 3 new beers." He's like, "Sweet, 4 kegs of each." It was simple. It was simple. It was great. It's half my volume gone, and they look after it. They're a good team. They all know about it. They got behind us, and I get to go drink beer with them every Monday. Every second Monday. It was great.
Amy loves your work too.
Pardon me?
It's okay. Amy loves your work too.
Amy loves the work, yes. I just haven't had much experience with, she kind of came on as the second wave hit.
I had to go out to Huapai to get this lot of beer today. So
I heard.
Yeah.
I heard $30 worth of gas. Hope it's worth it. How's that? How's the sour? Has anyone moved on to the?
No, well, they only had. It was the last of the keg, so there were 2 bottles.
The sour's excellent. I just don't want to rub it into the boys.
Again, explain that beer and what it's all about. So that's what it looks like.
It's excellent. I didn't want to rub it in too much to the boys, but it's really nice.
So a fruited goes, yeah.
Yeah.
So fruited with what?
Fruited American sour beer, I suppose, as there's no salt. So I guess I like to. I don't drink a lot of hazy. I taste a lot of hazies, but I love brewing them. So please keep drinking, everybody, because they're fun. The recipes are fun to write. You just get ridiculous with hops and flavors and all that kind of jazz. So it's always a bit of fun. But I do understand that drinking a lot of hazies is hard work. So for you guys doing the hard work, Jans, thank you. Keep it up. Sours is another fantastic avenue to express flavor. You've got a sour component. You've got a bunch of fruit. It's a simple malt bill. More often than not, it's just Pilsner and wheat.
50% or?
Probably not 50%. What's it called? 30% wheat. This particular one. Normally 30-ish. So yeah, 30. Sometimes I use a bit of oat as well, or chit malt. With this particular one, or the last 2 batches, I've added lactose, we pushed the terminal really high, almost like pastry stout style. And yeah, so you just, brew it as you would a normal brew day and get your beer into kettle and bring it up to temp, and then drop it down and inoculate with your lactobacillus. Let it do its thing for 2 to 3 days. Boil it off and run it to fermenter and add whatever yeast you want. With the low pH, yeast doesn't have a huge effect. You can use a Belgian strain. It won't, not many yeasts will come through. Final pH post fermentation is like 3.3. the final gravity on this was 1025.
Oh, that's really high for itself.
Huge. 8% lactose.
Wow.
Yep. But then 300 grams per liter of fruit.
And what forms your fruit in there?
With this is what did I say? It was pink. Yeah, this is all pureed. What do you call it?
Just says fruited goes on the beer spot label.
It's all pure. This is puree, heat treated puree, so it's all sterile. But in the past,
that's from Oldbrook, is it?
Nope, it's from don't know, food producers. Beer guys sell fruit too expensive, so I got to fish around.
Oh yeah.
But I've used frozen berries and blended them up with a stick blender and spent hours doing that. I've scooped out hundreds of kilos of watermelon. You can just do whatever you want, really. They're fun. I love doing it.
But wouldn't 100 hours put you off wanting to scoop watermelon ever again?
Yeah, sometimes it's just what you got to do, though, right?
But watermelon's there's not much flavour for yield, if you know what I mean.
It's fun, though. It's fun working out what the threshold is, Like, oh, shit, I need 100 kilos of watermelon. All right. How can we source that? Who's going to scoop it?
Take it on an island, right? I mean, there might not be 100 kilos on the whole island.
Totally. Oh, I got it. Yeah. I got it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we might have an internet outage.
Oh, he's back.
Did you get someone to shift the wireless access point for you?
Say that again, sorry?
Did you get someone to shift the wireless access point, the old school, so that, hold on to the TV antenna and point in a direction for the child?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Did you hear the dial-up tone?
No, we heard the squawks.
It was a cunning plan on his part. It's the Zoom equivalent of the pregnant pause, just to.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not pregnant. I'm just drinking a lot of beer. Okay.
Yeah.
For your pain.
So that's me in a nutshell. I don't know what's next except cans, and after that, who knows, man? Keep brewing.
So is there any point where you feel like you just got beer sitting that you would put into cans? Like what sort of how do you decide what goes in cans versus what goes to the bar?
Good question. I think it would depend on. I will brew beer specifically to go into can, and I will do that when we're not sitting on a huge stock of cans. I mean, if cans aren't selling, I'd rather this is a sales-led system rather than a brew-led system. I don't want to have I don't have 10 styles sitting in can. We need to work on sales to get these. It's only 1,000 cans. It's not. It's like 60 cases.
Yeah.
It's not a huge volume. We should be able to do that. So build the sales network and
when these COVID levels settle down and or even if we're still stuck within Auckland, but the ferries are running to Waiheke, we should be able to organise a day trip out or something. That would be could be a fun excursion.
Yeah.
You avoid the place on the weekends though, don't you?
Oh, he'd come out special.
Like the play. I'll leave the key under the
They have to like you an awful lot.
See yourselves in.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't it next Wednesday morning? Shops kind of open, so Christmas can continue. So I mean, everyone's working from home at this point, so just phone it in. Go over there on a weekday. Bernard won't mind. It'll be a wonderful experience, and well, if he's just sitting there going, "What are you roping me into?" But
beer picnic on the Alibi lawn.
Yeah, and I mean, just take your laptop, work with a beer in hand. I mean, seriously, who's not doing that right now?
The only flaw to your plan is the fact that it's essential travel only. They're not letting anyone to Waiheke. It's cut off the next forever.
All right. What we need is a car, a van. We'll just pack into the back of it, go over on
Helicopter,
the ferry.
boat,
Done.
jet skis. Yeah.
Okay, look around. These people aren't jet skiing anywhere.
Well, I mean, making beer is essential service, isn't it?
Yeah, but drinking beer might not be so much the essential part of that service.
Well, it keeps us all entertained. I've got a special passport that allows me to travel.
But they're doing that where you've got to carry a letter or there's something sort of a, put it to the screen, just show us what it is and we'll just take a little photo.
I do have a letter, but there's no one enforcing it. I mean, it's not Fuller's job to tell people what they can and can't do.
Yeah, it is a bit of an interesting one because I'm deemed an essential worker for what I do, but you still have to justify, and they will engage with your management. So yeah, it's still rough as guts at the moment. Fingers crossed things will open up and a bit more relaxed, and we within Auckland can sort of move a bit more before New Year's. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going from out of the frying pan into the pot with the numbers turning into colours.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, alongside that is if we do open up, there's going to be a bunch of restrictions, maximum 50 people in the restaurant, or things like that, which doesn't equate to huge volumes of beer being moved. Which is why we got the canning line. Really, I'm in a position where the owners did have a flexible bank balance that allowed us to kind of swim for a while before we sink, and a canning line is one of those buoyancy vests to help us do so.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I'm looking forward to seeing your cans back on shelves.
Well, let me look at my calendar.
Pilsner, baby. Pilsner.
Yeah. Can you are you able to tease us with locations that we should be keeping an eye on?
Growlers next weekend was the rumor that I heard.
That was the rumor, which has been debunked by the bosses. I'm looking at Friday the 19th. We've got a warehouse in Auckland, which is conveniently across the road from the Epic warehouse. And all going to plan.
That's a cemetery, dude. You can't.
Yeah.
That's not
a little bit down.
I know you're the one in front of them, in terms of what is it? They import all the dodgy Russian beers and the rest of the shit.
Where there's about 100 meters up the road.
No, that's Baltica or something.
Yeah.
100 meters up the road, there's the new warehouses, new buildings.
Still within walking distance of mine.
Yeah. So hopefully November the 19th, we'll be doing pre-sale, because we don't have a license out there, so everything has to be pre-purchased, but we're launching the cans, and we'll have 4 beers on tap for growler takeaway.
So be able to buy through the website.
We're working on how the best to do this. I don't know if it'll be through the website or not.
Because they've got a license. So
it gets really complicated. It
is.
So there'll be 4 beers, and I think there's 1 keg of the dark lager.
Nice.
So yeah, November 19th. Watch this space, follow the socials, and yeah.
I think me and Dave will just take the dark lager.
Assurances have been made. I hope they follow through on.
What have I promised? I can't remember. I can't keep up with what I promised. Everyone gets free beer.
Life, apparently.
Is being recorded.
Oh shit. So that's the date I'm working to. I did have a meeting with the bosses today, and they've taken that away, and they're looking at. We're talking with the wine guy who runs the website. Just to see what happens. Yep.
Cool.
So in terms of like obviously beyond the I mean, you're saying that contract's expensive, but is it still worth doing if you're really restricted by 4 tanks? Well, I mean, you still brew mostly what you can there, and then do a little bit extra with canning line.
We could do. We're a long way off 50,000 litres at this stage, so it's not something we're currently looking at. in the future, potentially. But I also feel, I mean, I feel quite strongly about, certain sizes and with a size I want to brew in, and a brand that if I'm doing all the work, I don't want to be having to do more work. And like 50,000 litres with a brew pub that's making most of the profit and some cans and a few kegs, it's doing well. Do we need to be selling our cans in the Stewart Island and exporting and all that kind of stuff? I don't need to.
It's just a whole new set of headaches, isn't it?
It's a whole, price goes, the cost goes up, price comes down, margins slim. You're dealing with supermarkets and getting bigger and bigger, and it's not something I particularly want to deal with.
Yeah, once you stare outside double margin, it's kind of a volume game, isn't it?
If you know, and you get the beer and you get it, it's fine, and you don't have to, please everybody. If they can't get it, they miss out that time. It's just the end of the story, really.
I think you've got the perfect model for a brewery where you are. So it's an awesome setup.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is basically TikToks is where you're going with with sales and marketing. I mean, I think it's a winning idea.
The next trophy I want to win is definitely handed out by TikTok.
You can try on some clothes and do some fashion,
some unboxings.
Yeah, totally. Beer is lovely. It's not my beer, but it's really good, and that beer is really good too.
I'm into it.
Fantastic.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from, because a lot of people said that you can't actually make money in beer unless you have a brew pub per se, like i.e. you're selling on site, because you're literally cutting out the middleman. So as long as you've got some means to actually get those tanks on a regular basis.
Yep.
I mean, are you actually finding, obviously, like pre-COVID, not many people can get on the island at the moment, but we're actually finding that beer was sitting in the tanks, or are you just pretty much turning them over as fast as you can?
Oh, we were on track. When did COVID hit? 2020, last year. We were on track for the financial year, max capacity, 50,000.
Okay. Nice.
80-90% of that was over the bar.
Yeah, 2019 was a good year.
Every year, just
I remember it fondly.
Dave's got the picture behind us. Who fabricated the tap system, Bernard? Because that is just insanely beautiful, isn't it?
Awesome, eh?
Some child in Italy, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys been out there. I mean, those taps come out of the ceiling and sort of like hang and suspended, like the pipes come down, hang over the bar, and then straight out of your brights, your serving tanks, aren't they?
Correct. Yeah.
Probably one of the most stunning bars. I'm saying full stop. It's amazing. You got a real shit office, man.
Yeah. Watch out, mower.
Yeah. Okay.
I should have read about that category.
Yeah, I was going to say you didn't need it, did you?
No, didn't even think of it. No, it's too busy.
It's
5 hours watching 4 kegs.
Yeah, you mentioned that hazies is one of those styles that not everyone loves to drink, particularly the brewers, but they brew them anyway. Where are you seeing the next sort of volume seller for you?
What style is going to be? You mean like what style I'm going to sell a lot of, other than Pilsner and hazies, or?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously you mentioned a few other brews that you're working on at the moment. Are they designed basically? You think I like these, I'm going to make these, or you're brewing with something else in mind?
Well, at the moment I'm going to brew what sells because we need the cash, I guess, and we're getting cans out there, so the beer needs to be popular and it needs to move, and I'll start feathering in things that I want to drink. But I do think that I don't drink a lot of hazies because the good ones are really good and I drink them. Everything else is kind of tastes the same. They lack definition. So I mean, I taste a lot because I want to strive for the ones that I really like. What is going to be next? I think overall people like yourselves are perhaps feeling somewhat similar and saturated by hazies and are moving back to cleaner West Coast. I think people are drinking lower alcohol beers. I mean, like not lower alcohol, but not I used to be able to sell 7% IPAs like that. We can't do that on site anymore, or we couldn't. I think people are moving to that kind of 6.5, 5. So there'll be more cleaner West Coast hoppy beers. Lagers.
You mentioned before you're going to start going into doing some stronger beers. So
yeah, I mean, I want to.
What are you thinking there?
They'll probably start off just being West Coast doubles. I think the
I'm gonna do a Belgian strong ale, mate.
Yeah,
it's not my specialty, no. I need a lot more brew experience.
No, you don't. Just crank it out, mate. It will be banging.
12
It's an insanely hard beer to make.
Yeah, I'm not that confident.
8 Wide and McLeod are pumping them out.
Yeah, Soren did a fantastic job.
Have you tried McLeod's one?
You're finally seeing us.
Have you tried McLeod's one? The Belgian strong?
No.
I thought Devil was good until I tried the Smugglers one. It's Devil had sit under Duvel. I put Jason's almost ahead of it. Oh yeah. Done a couple of side by sides in the interest of science, and it's stunning.
Is that to do with age and packaging and shipping halfway across the
world?
One of the Duels I got was, it was 3 days land into the country. It's about as fresh as you're going to get. The beer holds up pretty. You know how to compensate for age. I mean, it's slightly higher hopping profile. Both of them have, and you get a freshness of grain character. But the A1 one's really interesting, but it's kind of aggressive. The McLeod's one is just so. I mean, Duvel its beauty is in the simplicity of that beer. It is so elegant in the sense that it's so restrained and laid back. And I quite like the 8 Wide in the sense it was a little bit more forward, a little bit more dignity, a little bit more character. I mean, it's like what you kind of expect from a new age kind of thing. Is I think Jason's taken sort of something that probably sits halfway between Duvel and DT. It's cracking. It's really, really good. Blew me away.
Okay, so
I think this is coming from a place where IPAs have ruled for a long time, and you are starting to see brewers being allowed almost to brew these styles of beer again, where 5 years ago that would have sat on the shelf for weeks, months, not being able to move it. I think the knowledge of the community has come up through IPAs and hazies. And although it will never go away, I think people are more willing to try stuff, which means we can brew different stuff, like a dark lager. And I remember talking to Dave, being like, "Shit, I want to brew this beer. It's something I want to brew, but am I going to be able to sell it? What are the chances of me getting rid of 1,000 liters of it?" And it kind of played on my mind quite a bit. Like, do I even brew it? And I did, and it went extremely quickly. And it's allow you guys drinking different things. Allows us to brew different beers and know that it will sell. So I think, in terms of your question,
there's 2 layers of craft beer drinkers. There's the craft beer drinker who shops at the supermarket still, and then there's us who want to try all the new shit.
I think it's like a travelator. Like, there's you guys, and you guys were at a stage where all you wanted to drink was, you guys, I'm included, IPAs and hazies, right? And you kind of start off at the bottom and you move up and you go through and someone else gets on and it goes around and around, and all of a sudden you're over that and you want to go back to lagers, and then someone else gets the IPA and it just keeps going around and around.
It's actually a Mobus loop.
I've always been a slut, man. I just drink anything.
If it's good.
So
yeah.
In terms of volume
fun.
And the weather suits.
Gotta kiss a few frogs to get the,
Totally.
I think it's all about climate. What feels right for the weather today. That's why you got to have an extensive beer fridge.
Yeah,
I'd like to see you do a saison. I think you do a good saison.
Yeah, I've done a few saisons. I did that grisette, which
was pretty yum.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Vlad mentioned that.
He did. I saw that. I meant to get back to that because a year later it was still on up at.
Any plans? Sorry.
Up at the Kerry, the what's that bar up there? The tap room?
Oh, that's
something
Gary Himwood.
Kainoui's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on up there a year later, and I was like, "Is this my beer? What the hell?" It held up.
Happy days.
So it wasn't too popular up there then.
Yeah, no.
Didn't have a lion on the front of it.
Yeah. I mean, we've got like 30 taps. What were you going to say, Dave?
I was going to ask it. Was it in Taito Winery? Are we going to see any playing around of the grain and grape?
Oh, yeah, like Garage Project doing stuff.
I mean, I have played around
Just
with
throwing it out there.
There are some things in the works. There are a few barrels lying around that projects that have probably expired, but they were all learning curves. They had all the intentions. I've got a barrel aged Pilsner, which is kind of probably been barreled too long that I wanted to dry hop and kind of.
In Pinot Noir or Chardonnay barrel?
I think they're. Oh fuck! I can't remember. One's a Syrah and one's a Chardonnay.
Right.
I've got 4 barrels of saison, maybe 8 barrels of saison. Different components. Some have had wine to them. So they've been sitting there for a long time. They're kind of past their best.
What do you mean? Hey, there's no such thing, mate. It's called.
No, there is. They haven't been cared for. They haven't been topped. They're oxidized. They're unloved. It's just a time and space and hands and methods. I don't have a bottling machine. It's a whole nother dirty, wild workshop kind of thing, and there's not a lot of space. There's not enough hours in the day.
So you wouldn't put anything like that through your canning machine then?
No way. No. I do have a couple of 100 liters of which you may have heard about, a cherry. It's partial kettle sour, partial bourbon barrel aged, partial Syrah Lees beast. That has
goodness
bottled up.
We just come over on the ferry and bring straws.
Yeah,
and just help you drain the barrel. It won't be a problem.
Please. Long straws.
Please do.
Social distance straws.
$100 each.
Wine thieves.
All you can
seriously, we'll hold you to that.
This call has been recorded.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to America 2019 with the boss on a beer trip, and we found, especially down the Monterey coast, there are a number of people who had banging IPAs and hazes and everything. They also had fantastic barrel aged beer, but the culture was so different. Like, we were sitting there on a Tuesday afternoon, and mum and dads would come in, and instead of ordering a bottle of wine, they were ordering a bottle of 750ml bottle of beer. It's lower alcohol, and it wasn't. These are normal people. They weren't beer connoisseurs or anything like that. It was the mentality was quite different, and so I kind of wanted to grow on that and kind of hit the market. I thought, what a perfect place to have barrel-aged beer sitting outside at Alibi, having some lunch and something a bit funky in a bottle, that kind of jazz. So I did the brews and the legwork, and I don't have time to. I haven't had time to work on labels and bottling and all that kind of stuff in between.
Sounds like you need to clone yourself.
Yeah. It's something we have to commit to and get a bottling line, like a not a full-on bottling line, like a.
I mean, I have heard, like the whole brewer's lifestyle is like you're starting super early, you're finishing super late. Like the amount of hours you must crank in a week. I mean, a normal week, not a COVID week, but a normal one would be pretty insane, right?
Yeah. I'm doing the marketing and the deliveries and the brewing and the cleaning and commuting 20 hours a week and all that kind of shit. So it's busy.
Well, I mean, when you're traveling from the mainland to the other smaller islands, it's a good time to sleep or read or audio books.
And no one ever mugs you on the ferry.
Oh no, they just touch you inappropriately. It's very different experience. But I am curious about the artwork. Who is doing your art for? Well, who has done your art for the?
Yeah, the Alibi logo itself is cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And thank you. That's exactly where I was going with that one. It is really, really clean and very beautiful.
You're talking about the flocked Alibi.
It was kind of
the Alibi logo with all the that's coming off it.
Stuff.
Big A.
I couldn't tell you. It's a design. It was kind of before my time.
Okay.
A lot of this was set up. The whole brewery was set up without a brewer, to my knowledge.
Wow.
And a marketing team.
And someone has some tax money they needed to write off or something.
Sounds like it.
Well, all I was going to say is whoever was doing your artwork, find them, get them to keep doing it, because the what I've seen art-wise come out of, as I said, I've seen, I believe, cans on shelves historically, and the artwork was stunning. So don't deviate, because it is just pure and clean and really just
as
great.
an actual professional graphic designer, I totally agree. It's really good, nice and clean.
As a man who drinks beer, I concur.
I sacked him years ago. I took him off the job.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Well,
Delegate.
you can pay me with beer.
Delegate to the kids. Get them to draw some squiggly lines.
Pretty much what I did. No, I mean, he was very good for as you can see behind Kelly, that kind of stuff there on the bottles, the logo, and fine. He was super expensive, and you got nothing out of him as graphic designers are. Kelly. He missed briefs. He was doing, I'd send him a brief and give him all the resources in the world, and he would come back with this lame crap ever that wasn't on point. It's really hard. I mean, I'm pretty much doing the branding as well and trying to find people.
Hey,
let's chat later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just in regards to the branding, as long as you've got the vector art, you can pretty much take it to anyone. And worst case scenario, if you run into issues, reach out. I'm sure there's people out here who would be very happy to help.
I do have a guy who's been doing the tap badges for the last couple of years. I don't know if you've seen them. They're a bit more of a graffiti style, I suppose.
You got to be careful. You got to be careful with graffiti style, because it only really applies to Funk Estate these days.
Ouch. Yeah, well, not.
That's a bit brutal.
Sorry. It was meant to be cheek, and as it came out, I was like, all these words back.
The Funk Estate is also the worst type of graffiti. If you go onto Untapped, you can see like the Fool's Goop tap badge. I mean, that's the most current guy. The guys who are doing the cans, it's another guy again, or another group of people. They built our website, and my arm was twisted to use them. So I'd be interested to get your feedback on the cans when they come out. Actually, one is from this graffiti style guy, and the two others are this new company. It's incorporated what we've already got, but it's not.
Yeah, I think the A stands out. The Alibi, that beautiful A, so it's almost gold lettering.
Yeah,
it's just so clean, and it just stands out from the other beers on the shelf.
Because of the fine lines, it's very hard to incorporate into
and also to have it to reduce down small, because
totally. As soon as you start making things tiny, the more detail, the harder it is. So
probably doesn't work very well in social media and for little icons and things either.
It's in terms of design, it's a really shit design because it doesn't work very well.
It just works big and at that size, but
really
it does look cool at that size.
Yeah, no, and that's always the fun, right? That's why I'm an IT and not a graphics designer. I just
they didn't include just looking at a new site. They haven't included like that stylistic. You've gone with quite a different design. Okay.
Are you looking at the website?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the website in a very long time. I've been avoiding it until the cans came online.
I think it's brains. Well, looks pretty new. Different how it used to be. Might have just been a while for me.
Oh, it used to just be a holding page.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Website looks nothing like the brand at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of very.
Moving on to beer stuff.
Anyway, well, Bernard, you've generously given us 2 hours of your time. So if you want to bugger off, you're very welcome. But if you want to hang on, you're also very welcome. So thanks for being there.
That's quite all right. Thank you for the invitation and your support and kind words.
Well done, mate. I mean, Champion Exhibitor, that's massive. Yeah, I hope everyone here realizes just how big that is. To
be honest, I didn't realize how big it was. I wasn't really watching the awards. I had to go home and be like, what does that even really mean? And they beat around the bush here, or until my sister kind of sent the Michael Donaldson breakdown of what it really was. I'm like, okay, shit, yeah, that's the big one. Yeah, I'm humbled, I'm honoured, and we can keep it up.
Overall best brewery